and the birth of Levi in Genesis chapter 29, the third son of Leah and Jacob. And for whatever reason, beyond the fact that Moses and others perhaps come in the lineage of Levi, Levi got special privileges over all the other tribes and all the other people that came out, children that came out of Egypt. And tonight, what we want to do is that we want to look at several things that as we go forward. And I got a couple of quiz questions that I just want to kind of get you engaged in the process so you don't fall asleep thinking my teaching is boring. So if I give you a quiz question that might keep you awake while I'm teaching. Now I'm going to read several chapters. I'm going to read from Leviticus, a couple of chapters in Leviticus chapter 11, chapter 10, a partial verses. And I'm going to read also from Numbers chapter 1, possibly chapter 2 and 3 as well. And in those chapters, you're going to see something is missing. And I want you to try to discover what is it that is not said in those chapters that perhaps should be obviously said, but it's very obvious that it's not mentioned. And while a lesser item to make note of will be how many times God uses the phrase that they shall not come nigh lest they be put to death. Now, there are a couple of things that we want to do. One is that when we look at this book, that the first 5 books of this Bible are called the Pentateuch, the Penta representing 5. They're all written by Moses. Now think for just a second, since you've been around the church for a while and you've handled this Bible quite a bit. Were we to take the book of Leviticus rather, were we to take the book of Leviticus out of the Bible, and another book I'm going to use tonight, perhaps even more than Leviticus, out of the Bible, were we to take those 2 books out of the Bible, you would be left with, in terms of the writings of Moses, you would be left with Genesis, which takes us up to the period of Joseph, and necessarily to the reign of Joseph as Zaphnath-Paaneah, the end of the famine, the 7-year famine, and then Joseph's voice falls silent, and so the Egyptian captivity falls silent. And in Exodus, we then get the narrative of now the birth of Moses, the decree that has been put out by Pharaoh that all of the sons of the children of Israel, all the boys, shall be killed. And we get Moses fished up out of the Nile River, and then he meets God on Mount Horeb in Exodus chapter 3. But if we move if we move Leviticus and Numbers, we move from and then we go reading narratively from Genesis to Exodus. In Exodus we get the history. The book of Exodus gives us the history of the children of Israel's journey in the wilderness, the things that they encountered. Moses up on the mountain. We get the first sign of the commandments. We get the big 10 out in Exodus chapter 20. In Genesis, by the way, we get the history of the world. We get the history of the world. We get the history of the world of God and his people. And Exodus, we get the history of the people that moves out, so their history of the 40 years. So 40-year history, Exodus is the 40-year history of the children of Israel in the wilderness. Leviticus we've moved out, which will be in the next book. Numbers we've taken out. Now we're left just with the book of Deuteronomy. So if you take Genesis, Exodus, Deuteronomy is the second giving of the law. It's a time when Moses has been informed he's not going into the promised land. And so he gives a second giving of the law. And the book of Leviticus itself is the law. Now, there are 765 or thereabouts, and I could be off a number too, of actual verses. There are 27 chapters in the book of Leviticus, and there are 765 verses in the book of Leviticus. Of the 27 chapters, Now, we know that the laws that were given, there's some discretion, and I'm still ambivalent about which one I want to side with, whether there's 613 laws that Moses gave or 641 laws. I've always leaned towards the fact that there's 641 laws, but one can argue that some of the laws that would make up the additional laws that will give you above 613 to 641 laws can be considered one law, and you're multiplying that law more than once. But at some point, we're going to take the time to look in the book of Leviticus, and we're going to, through 27 chapters, and see if we can find the actual 641 laws. Because that's what the book is about. Leviticus chapter 20, verse 13. Guess what that is? That's a law. Man shall not lie with mankind as with woman, or he shall be put to death. That's one of the laws. Well, there are a whole lot of them. Man shall not lie with his mother-in-law. Father shall not lie with his daughter. These are laws. So of the 765 verses that are in the book of Leviticus, we're going to extract some either 613 laws or 641 laws, and then we'll discover what were the other, or 635 verses. We'll discover what were the other verses all about, with the introductory verses, etc. So let's pick up where we left off last week. And I'm not going to spend most of our time tonight on the dietary laws. This segment of Leviticus laws in chapter 11 are given, they're in the category of the dietary laws. There are military laws, there are laws about marriage, there are laws about giving, there are laws about the tabernacle, there's a law about sacrifice, there's all kinds of laws. But chapter 11 of the book of Leviticus consists of the dietary laws. Now, you'll find these laws given again in Deuteronomy chapter 14. But remember, we read last week about the laws of the diet of what you can eat and what you cannot eat. And we left off at verse 8. And I'm not going to go back through that again, and I'm not going to read all of chapter 11 because it has all of the dietary laws. They're all contained in this chapter 11. But it says, I'll pick up where we left off last week. Of their flesh ye shall not eat, talking about forbidden cloven foot, though it doesn't chew the cud. Their carcass shall ye not touch, they are unclean to you. So you not only can you not eat unclean items, but you can't touch them. There was a report that came across the news wire last night that there's a new swine flu developing in China, and the Chinese now are saying they are aware of it, and they were showing all of these pigs that are they're raised in these very tight settings that are very unnatural. Literally thousands of pigs are raised just for the purpose of slaughter, and they're saying they're carrying some sort of a swine flu. But they haven't determined in China whether that swine flu, in addition to the coronavirus event that's now happening, whether that swine flu is communicable, whether or not it can be transferred from a swine to a human. But there is a new swine flu in China. Someone wrote to me also and said, after we had posted up the teaching about you should not eat swine or you should not eat lobster or shrimp or crabs, and someone posted up, well, that's why the Lord told us to pray over it. And we pray over it, we can eat it. Okay, all right. Okay, I see where you're going. You just want to pork out. But, so you're talking about praying, right? Let me ask you a question. You that wrote me that insultive response to my teaching last week. If I were to take a piece of, let's say hamburger, McDonald's, and I took that hamburger from McDonald's, opened up the bun, and gave a deep cleansing of my throat and spit on that hamburger, and then put the bun back on it, put the pickle and the tomato back, would you eat it? You say, well, no, I wouldn't. Well, let me ask you, would you pray over it and then eat it? Hell no. You wouldn't eat it even if you prayed over it. No, you wouldn't. So the swine, the crab, the lobster hasn't been spat on, but he has a poison in his system. And your praying over it ain't gonna move it. But one other thing, by the way, since you said that God said pray over everything and then eat it, that's contradictory to the word of God. It is ridiculous religiosity thinking. You should pray over food because you're thankful for it. You should pray over it and bless it. But if God told you don't eat it, what you're going to pray over to try to change God's word? You're going to change what God said about it by prayer? Prayer's not going to change it. And by the way, your prayers are not that effective anyway. I mean, you tell me that you can pray over a spit on a hamburger or poison in a swine, and all you got to do is pray over and it's good to go. Your prayers are not that effective, and you know it. How many times have you actually in your entire stomped down, natural bone, nappy head life, have you ever seen an answer prayer? That you prayed. That you prayed. Because effectively, to eat that pig, that pork chop, those chitlins, those pig feet, those pig ears, to eat that, you got to pray, and then your prayers got to be answered and be effective, and to make that swine, what God said is unclean, clean. How many times have you actually have a prayer answered? The answer is probably none. So praying over your food is, anyway, why spend time? But I think it's important because a lot of people want to try to get away from that. Let's read a little bit more, and then I'm going to go to Numbers, all right? Verse 9. These shall ye eat of all that are in the waters, whatsoever haveth fins and scales, in the waters and in the seas and the rivers, them shall ye eat. And all them that have not fins and scales in the seas, in the rivers, of all that move in the waters, and of any living thing which is in the waters, they shall be an abomination unto you, and you shall not eat them. So you can't eat shark, Captain Farr. I've been around found we've been buying shark from anyway. Shark has fins, but it doesn't have scales. Years and years and years ago, there used to be a gray material made in suits called shark skin suits. It was just a gray wool, but they call it shark skins. Sharks don't have scales, they have skin. They got fins, but the fish has got to have both a fin and a scale, otherwise don't eat. So I wanted to be able to help you to do that. What I want to do now, I'm coming back to this. That's how many verses in chapter 11. There's another 47 verses in chapter 11 about what you can't eat. Did you know you could eat locusts? You could eat grasshoppers? Did you know that? I don't know if I want to eat them. But someone said they're very tasty, that you catch a grasshopper, roast him on the fire, and just eat him whole, just the way he eat. But God gives you permission to eat locusts. Anyway, what I want to do now, but look at something a little bit more, I think, important for us, is to look at how the Levites, of the 12 sons of Israel, how the Levites got so much power. That is to say, they became the singular tribe that were established, out of which the priesthood came, and then they were established several duties as priests, and anybody who was not out of the tribe of Levi that came to do or tried to do anything, from being a musician or to being a priest or to being, in the Catholic term, an altar boy, or to be one that carries the temple or even cleans the temple, anybody who actually came in who was not a Levite that came in to clean the temple, God would kill him. And that gave the Levites uber power. Not just that, but when they set up their camp out in the wilderness, the tabernacle was a moving temple at a church. It wasn't stationary. They moved it from place to place. They had to set it up as a big tent, take it down when they got ready to move. And the way you're going to hear me read about how they were to be positioned on either side of the tent, and the Levites were to be right behind the tent out front. Very interesting, but they had uber power. They did, and the Levites did, and how they got that power, I'm going to show you. One is the reason, if you look in Leviticus chapter 10, you'll notice that the sons of Aaron, who was the first priest, had two other boys, three boys, one named Abihu, the other named Nadab, and an older boy named Eleazar. Nadab and Abihu The Bible said in the priest's office, the office of sacrifice, they offered strange fire, and God killed them right there. In Leviticus and Numbers, we discover that God kills anybody who was not, in those days, if you were not assigned from the tribe of Levi, you could not be a minister or a priest. Not only that, but you couldn't be a musician, you couldn't be a cameraman, you couldn't be any of that if you weren't a part of the Levitical tribe. So God killed Nadab and Abihu, and I'm going to read in Numbers the reassigning of the assignment on the Eleazar under Aaron, but those two boys blew it. What I'm going to do now is, as I said before, so we got Leviticus, which really contains all the laws. The book of Leviticus is not a historical book. It just gives you all the laws. 27 chapters. It's the Constitution. It's the law. It's the Blackstone Law Library. It's the law. This is where you get all the laws. All the laws are contained in Leviticus. Now, some of them are repeated like in the book of Deuteronomy and also in the book of Exodus. But Leviticus is about the law. What I want to do, however, is look at another book called Numbers. And it is appropriately named Numbers because that's what God does. He numbers everybody. And so let's look at that in Numbers. Let's go to Numbers chapter. I think that, where should I go first? Let's see now. Well, I'm trying to discover whether I should do Numbers chapter 3 first or Numbers chapter Numbers chapter 1. Let's do Numbers chapter, let's see. Let's do Numbers chapter 3 first, all right? And what we want to ultimately get to, I'm checking my notes here. What we want to ultimately get to, let's do Numbers chapter 3, starting at verse 38. But those that camped before the tabernacle towards the east, even towards the tabernacle of the congregation, eastward shall be Moses and Aaron and his sons, keeping the charge of the sanctuary for the children of Israel, and for the stranger that cometh nigh shall be put to death. And all that were numbered of the Levites, which Moses and Aaron numbered at the commandment of the Lord throughout their families, all the males from a month old and upward were 22,000. And the Lord said unto Moses, number all the firstborn of the males of the children of Israel from a month old and upward, and take the number of their names, of their tribes. And thou shalt take the Levites for me, for I am the Lord. Instead of all the firstborn among the children of Israel and the cattle of the Levites, instead all the firstlings among the cattle of the children of Israel. And Moses numbered, in the book of Numbers, Moses numbered as the Lord commanded him, and all the firstborn among the children of Israel, and all the firstborn males by the number of names from a month old and upward. And those that were numbered of them in the book of Numbers were 200,000 rather, and 13. And the Lord spake unto Moses, said, take the Levites, instead of all the firstborn among the children of Israel, and the cattle of the Levites instead of their cattle, and the Levites shall be mine. The Lord says. Now of all the tribes, God is saying, but of the Levites that are numbered, how many was it? There was 200,000 and 73, or 13, which would be 73, that were numbered. Then God says to Moses, all right, then take the Levites. Instead of the firstborn among the children of Israel and all the cattle of the Levites, instead of that, their cattle, the Levites shall be mine. Then it says, I am the Lord. And for those that are to be redeemed of the 200,000 1,073 of the firstborn of the children of Israel, which are more than the Levites, thou shalt even take 5 shekels. So what we're looking at is how God is numbering them, and according to the Levites being taken as special before the Lord. Now let's go back to chapter 1 of Numbers as the whole process gets started. And I don't want to read through all these names, but I may have to do that. Well, all right, let's go back to chapter 1, verse, I'm trying to avoid all these names. And the Lord spake unto Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the tabernacle of the congregation on the first day of the second month in the second year after they were come out of the land of Egypt. So they're out now 2 years. He take you to some of the congregation of the children of Israel after their families, by the house of their fathers, with the number of their names, each male by their poles, from 20 years old and upward, that are able to go forth to war in the Israel. Now, what I want you to look to here, there's something that's not going to be said. I want you to try to figure out what is it that's not being said. Now, God is numbering. He's going to go through all the tribes. I got to pronounce all the names. I'm going to actually do that. But I want you to ask yourself a question. What is it that's not being said? What is it that's here that you would think would have been said but has not been said? And then ultimately, the reason why I'm reading Numbers now is because I want you to become familiar with the significance of the tying in of the book of Leviticus and the book of Numbers, and also of the other tribes, but how the Levites got such immense power over all the nation of Israel, and anybody who touched them, God would kill them. And then, of course, we get the Levites, and we get their priesthood assignment. We're going to look at Gershon and Kohath and Merari, who are the sons of Eleazar. But think, what is missing here? I'm going to read for a while. And from 20 years old and upward are all able to go forth to war in Israel. Thou and Aaron shall number them by their armies. And with you there shall be a man of every tribe, everyone head of the house of his fathers. And these are the names of the men that shall stand with you. Of the tribe of Reuben, which was firstborn, Elzuar, the son of Shedeur, of Simeon, Shelumiel, the son of Zurishadai, of Judah, whose name. Now you will notice, if you go back to Genesis chapter 29, that when the births of the sons of Leah are given, it's first Reuben, then Simeon, then Levi, and then Judah, which is the fourth and the last child that was born by Leah. But you'll notice that what's missing here is that Levi gets skipped over and they go right from Simeon to Judah. All right, verse 6, of Simeon, his sons, of Judah, can I just say his sons, because all these names, Nahshon, the son of Amminadab, so I don't want to be disingenuous here, but I'll just give Issachar, Nathaniel, the son of Zuar, then Zebulun. By the way, a lot of people call his name Zebulun. And in North Carolina, it was a doctor, it was a dentist, his name. He had a dentist right there on Main Street in Red Springs, North Carolina. His name was we call him Dr. Zebulun. But really it's pronounced Zebulun, Zebulen. And Eliab, the son of Helon, the children of Joseph. Now it's interesting here, because Joseph is one of the sons of Jacob. He's one of the 12. But God doesn't give him a tribe. He's not the head of a tribe. What God does is substitute Joseph's son. One is called Ephraim and the other is called Manasseh. And so Joseph is left out of the tribal authority, if you will. Verse 10, and the children of Joseph, Ephraim, Eliashma, the son of Amminahud of Manasseh, and Gamaliel, the son of Pedahozud, Lord have mercy, and of Benjamin, Abidan, the son of Gideah, and of Dan, Elziar, the son of Amishadai. Now, you know, I'm just doing a real butchering of these names, and God forgive me for not having a better tongue to pronounce these names. Please forgive me. Of Asher, his sons. Of Gad, his sons. Of Naphtali, his sons. And that's the list of the 12. Now these were the renowned, that is to say, of the congregation. They were the princes of the tribes and their fathers and the heads of thousands in Israel. So every family knew his family lineage, though these men had been dead. Reuben, Simeon, Zebulun, and Naphtali had died years earlier, but their families all knew who they were. They all had their bloodline pure, so they all stayed together as a tribe. And they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their pedigrees, right, which I just said, after their families, by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names from 20 years old and upward by their polls. As the Lord commanded Moses, so he numbered, again in the book of Numbers, he numbered them. So you're noticing now how many times the word numbered is in the book of Numbers. So he numbered them in the wilderness of Sinai. And the children of Reuben, Israel's eldest son, by their generation and by their families, by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, by their polls, every male from 20 years old and upward, and all that were able to go forth to war. Those that were numbered of them, even of the tribe of Reuben, were 46,500. And of the children of Simeon, by their generations, after their families, by the house of their fathers, those that were numbered of them, according to the numbers of their names, by their polls, every male from 20 years old and upward, all that were able to go forth to war. Those that were numbered of them, even of the tribe of Simeon, were 59,300. Again, Levi does not get mentioned. Of the children of Gad, by their generations, after their families, in verse 24, by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from 20 years old and upward, all that were able to go forth to war. Those that were numbered of them, even of the tribe of Gad, were 45,650. So we're getting all these numbers. Of the children of Judah, by their generations, after their families, by their fathers, according to the number of the names, from 20 years old and upward, all that were able to go forth to war. Those that were numbered of them, even of the tribe of Judah, were 314,600, or 64,000. And the children of Issachar, by their generations after their families, by the house of their fathers, according to the number of their names, from 20 years old and upward, all that were able to go forth to war. Those that were numbered of them of the tribe of Issachar were 54,400. Of the children of Zebulun, by their generations, after their families, by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from 20 years old and upward, all that were able to go forth to war. And those that were numbered of them, even of the tribe of Zebulun, were 57,400. Of the children of Joseph, namely the children of Ephraim, by their generations after their families, by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from 20 years old and upward, all that were able to again go forth to war. Those that were numbered of them that were of the tribe of Ephraim were 40,500. And of the second son of Joseph, of the children of Manasseh. Now, Ephraim and Manasseh got a tribal section, but not much power thereafter. Mainly because Ephraim's mother was not a Jew, and neither Manasseh. You remember, Joseph married an Egyptian, of the priest of the Egyptians. She was an Egyptian woman. But she gave him two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. But for whatever reason, of all the great work that Joseph did, beloved of his father Jacob, he was not given a prince. He was not called the prince of the tribes of Israel. But his sons got some territory. Verse 34, of the children of Manasseh by their generations after their families, by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, 20 years old and upward, and all that were able to go forth to war. Those that were numbered, them even of the tribe of Manasseh, were 30 and 2,200. Of the children of Benjamin, Joseph's younger brother, by their generation and by their families, by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from 20 years old and upward, all that were able to go forth to war. And those that were numbered of the tribe of Benjamin were 30 and 5,400. Now again, I'm going to conclude this in just a moment, but I want you to understand why is this important. Why are you teaching Numbers rather than Leviticus? Because I'm trying to show you how God excluded the Levites. Not of any tribe except the Levites, that he said, the Levites are mine. I am God. They belong to me. They are most precious in my sight. And so we want to show you all the other tribes don't get that kind of kudos, if you will, from God. They don't get that kind of recognition. And those that were, in verse 37, those that were numbered of the tribe of Benjamin were 30 and 5,400. And of the children of Dan, by their generations after their families, by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from 20 years old and upward, all that were able to go forth to war, those that were numbered, them, even of the tribe of Dan, were 60 and 260,700. Of the children of Asher, by their generations, after their families, by the house of their fathers, according to the numbers of the names, 20 years old and upward, were able to go forth to war. And those that were numbered, them of the tribe of Asher, were 40 and 1,500. And of the children of Naphtali, throughout their generations, after their families, by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from 20 years old and upward, that were able to go forth to war. Those that were numbered, even of the tribe of Naphtali, were 50 and 3,400. These are those that were numbered in the book of Numbers, which Moses and Aaron numbered, and the prince of Israel being 12 men, and that's about not 12 men, 12 different tribes. The prince, all these were considered princes, each one. Being 12 men, each one was for the house of their fathers. So were all those that were numbered of the children of Israel by the house of their fathers from 20 years old and upward, all that were even able to go forth to war. Even all that were numbered were, total number of all these numbers was 600,000, 3,500. Verse 47 is where I want to go to. But the Levites, very important. But the Levites, after the number of their tribes, were numbered among them. For the Lord had spoken unto Moses, saying, only thou shalt not number the tribe of Levi, neither take the sum of them from among the children of Israel. But thou shalt appoint the Levites over the tabernacle of testimony, and over the vessels thereof, and over all the things that belongeth to it. They shall bear the tabernacle and all the vessels thereof, and they shall minister unto it, and shall encamp round about the tabernacle. And when the tabernacle setteth forth, the Levites shall take it down, and when the tabernacle is to be pitched, that's when it's ready to be moved, they shall take it down, and when it's pitched, ready to be set up, the Levites shall set it up. And the stranger that cometh nigh shall be put to death. In other words, nobody, you couldn't work, you couldn't serve in the temple, you couldn't do anything. Now, God gave all that about all the Dan, Issachar, Zebulun, Naphtali, and all that tribe, all the 12 princes, even Manasseh and Ephraim. But of Levi, they were not numbered. They were not allowed to go off to war. You notice the continual phrase was 20 years old and upward, they were able to go off to war. So we have a principle here, I think, in America, where if you're 18 years old, you're able to go off to war. However, there are deferments that are given. If you were married, you could get another classification if you just got married. That classification that I got during the Vietnam War came out of this book of Leviticus, not Numbers, but Leviticus. For if a man has just taken a wife and he's only been with her for less than a year, he cannot go off to war, even if he's 20 years old and up. So there was the military deferment, all those laws, and many of the laws that we enjoy as a nation here in America comes from the book of Leviticus as well. But the thing I wanted to show you most importantly here was how the Levites were treated special. And their job was of such that anybody who tried to do their job, anybody who said they were a preacher and were not a tribe of Levi, you came and tried to touch anything, even clean the toilets, God would kill you. Verse 52. And the children of Israel shall pitch their tents, every man by his own camp, and every man by his own standard throughout their host. By standard, it means they were all given various assignments. In other words, if the tabernacle was put forward, for instance, if there was a mountain behind them, if they were traveling, when they put up the tabernacle, and by the way, you heard they had over 600,000 people, right? So the tabernacle must have been huge. It was some small place. For all of them to come in on the Sabbath day and worship, it must have been huge. Now, you haven't heard me read as of yet the number of people that it took to set up that tent, to set up that tabernacle. And the tabernacle that was designed was a big tent, and it had poles, like these poles, they had support systems. It had rods, you had to pitch it, and then you had to put staves and ropes around it like you would any other tent, so the wind didn't blow it down. Sometimes they stayed in one place for 3 or 4 months. The tabernacle stayed there, so it had to endure rain, wind. And then, of course, there were curtains. They had to be put up. There were all kinds of vessels. The altar had to be set up, the floor, the curtains, the rugs. All that had to be set up, all that. And it was a massive undertaking. You're talking about something as big as Yankee Stadium or bigger, if not bigger than to set up in the wilderness so everybody could come in at one time and worship. It was a humongous undertaking. The Levites' job was to take care of that entire process, and nobody else could even so much as touch a rod or a chair or a pew or a toilet stool, if you will, in that process. So, and this gave them power. And God said if anybody else comes in to try to be a priest, and we're going to look at chapter 2, we're going to look at the organization of the priests, of Gershon, of Korath, and Merari, that would be put to death. So where was I reading at just then? Verse 53, but the Levites shall pitch round about the tabernacle. In other words, the Levites shall camp round about the tabernacle. So in other words, what God's saying, he was setting up really urban planning. You got 12 tribes. You got nearly over 500,000 people out there in the desert, right? They were not allowed to mingle when they had their houses, when they set up their camps. Reuben had his camp and all of his 50,000 men behind the tabernacle. And I don't want to get this, I have to go back over this again. Who was on the east side of the tabernacle, who was on the west side of the tabernacle, but the Levites were around the tabernacle, and then on the east side was Reuben, on the rising of the sun. On the west side of the tabernacle, for instance, Simeon and his 65,000 people, family members, would sit on the west. Reuben, the oldest boy, would sit on the east as the rising of the sun. And then Levi would circle his camp would be around the entire, he'd be like a protective fence around the entire tabernacle. And then you would have Judah, and you would have the other tribes, Dan, Zebulun, Issachar. They would all be further away. So the older you were, the larger you're established as a priest, as a prince, the closer you got to the tabernacle. The younger you were, like Benjamin, Manasseh, and Ephraim, you were stationed away from the tabernacle. And you think about this, and one of the reasons why I started teaching this lesson, because I was thinking about, we have to, in the 1,000-year reign of peace, what's going to be our law? We're not going to have the Constitution of America. America will have no importance over who we will be in the 1,000-year reign of peace. The French Parliament, the English government, the communist ideology, none of that. None of that. So when we are in the 1,000-year reign of peace for 1,000 years, what will be our governing principle? So the idea is this, is that when God brings them out of Egypt, he sets up all of these laws. I mean, and if you take the time to study it and look, it is beautiful. You got to know this is God, because who would take the time to talk about where every child and his father in every camp, there are 50,000 members in your family. There are 50,000 members in Zebulun's family. There are 65,000 members in Issachar's family. And all of them had to stay within the same little towns. So when I got New York City, we got Yonkers, we got New Rochelle. That's what it would be. They would have all these other little towns around the main town, which would be the tabernacle, which is where the Levites themselves would stay. Who would think to do that? I mean, who would think that kind of urban planning? But that's what I just read to you, as confusing as it was. And please forgive me if my not being able to pronounce the names correctly probably threw you off and caused you to be disinterested. Maybe I should have told a joke. But what I wanted you to see here was the planning that God put into this thing. This was no joke. This is ancient planning written thousands of years ago of how each family, each tribe, according to its hierarchy, was established and what each one of their assignments were to do. But the tribe that got the most press, the tribe that was the most important, was the tribe of the Levites. And that's what I'm trying to communicate here tonight. Now I don't have very much time left to wrap all of this up. I wanted to get to chapter 2 because in chapter 2, we're going to look at, okay, you got temple workers, you got musicians, you got all those people that come out of the tribe of Levi. And no priest nobody could be a priest if you were not a Levite. And we're going to look at that in chapter 2 next week. We can't do that tonight. I don't have enough time. But the Levites also, their job was to keep the tabernacle, which was a massive tent. So they couldn't be shepherds. They couldn't be military men. They couldn't go off to war. Did I read that yet? Let's see if I didn't read that yet. But the Levites shall pitch around about the tabernacle of testimony, and there be no wrath upon the congregation of children of Israel. And the Levites shall keep charge of the tabernacle, and the children of Israel did according to all that the Lord commanded Moses, so they did. In chapter 2, we'll get to the point where they cannot go off to war. And so, because they weren't farmers, they weren't shepherds, as all the other tribes were able to do, all the other tribes would bring on their day of worship, they would bring their tithes and their offerings of their sheep, of their herds, of their flocks. And the Levites would eat from what all the other tribes produced. That's where you get the tithe. That's where it comes from. And that's how, because the Levites didn't have jobs. In fact, they couldn't even own property in the sense of what God had established. So I wanted to be able to help us look at that, because at some point we're going to have to think about how enduring are the laws of Moses when we go into the 1,000-year reign of peace, and what I'm now determining as the third movement of God upon planet Earth. How enduring are those laws? But my fascination with this many years ago was that I would think that God would just be kind of lazy and say, okay, God, you come out in the wilderness. What all this business of numbering everybody? What's all this business of every tribe has a prince, have a head, every father? You have the town of Reuben, the town of Issachar, the town of Zebulun, the town of Gad. Everybody got their own town. You can't, everybody, but the center of attraction was the tabernacle, and the Levites got all that power. I think it's fascinating. And then, of course, So I'm going to, because we didn't pray very long last week. I only prayed like 2 minutes. Deacon Williams told me I ran away from the prayer altar. He said that to me. So tonight, we'll try to spend a little time praying. Generally, I try to give prayer about 12 minutes. But I also want to make this consistent with a 1 hour shot tonight. So we only have about 14 minutes left. So let me try to wrap this up. When we get back next week, the Lord let us get back, we're going to look at chapter 2 and the formation of the priest. Out of Aaron, Eleazar, after Abihu and Nadab got blown away by God for offering strange fire. And then in Leviticus, in Numbers chapter 11, we get the formation of the elders. There are no elders right now. All of their princes, they're called princes now. They're not called elders, they're called princes. And then when we get to Numbers, you've heard me refer to Moses telling, after the tent of meetings, calling everybody over to the tent of the heads of the 12 tribes, 70 people all total. We'll get to that next week. But I wanted to be able to have you begin to think. So what was it that you didn't hear read? What was it that you didn't hear that perhaps should have been said in the quiz? What was missing that I did not say? Of all the reading I did, and I've read a lot, what is it that you did not hear? What is it? I can tell you what it was. You kept hearing me say of every male 20 years old and upward, or every male 1 month old and upward. You never heard me mention a woman. Not one time. When God numbered all the tribes, the women were not numbered. Generally, there could be more women than there were men. So I estimated that of the 600,000 that we get, that the Bible says conclusively of all the males, that's just the males. That's not the women and the men. That's just the males. So of all that reading you heard me read, and as bad as I was reading it, I'm a bad reader anyway, I was butchering it, and I admit that. You didn't hear the mention of counting, of acknowledgement of one woman. Not one. Not one. By the way, Jacob had a daughter named Dinah. You don't hear her mentioned at all. You don't hear the daughters of any of these men. All these men had daughters. Now, is this male, if you will, dominance? Is this anti-woman? No, it isn't that at all. It isn't that. It's just Bible. It's just Bible. Here's what I do. I say, well, now listen, if God numbered 600,000 males and never once mentioned a woman, but strategically you think about, God is thinking about the town of Gad, the tribe of Gad, the tribe of Reuben, Issachar, Zebulun, Simeon, Dan, and he put them all together, and he's numbering all of them in the tribe of Levi. And all of this is organization, not like hodgepodge, everybody just kind of thrown together and no real organization. This is organization beyond organization. This is outstanding organization. And one would look at it today in terms of urban planning. So you got to take this seriously. Why didn't God mention women? Why? Why weren't women mentioned in this process? Why? Why only males? And there's a reason for that. There's a reason. I think that you know what it is, but look at how much we have changed the Word of God. If you were not a Levite, you couldn't touch this. If you were not a Levite, when someone came to the tabernacle door, a Levite had to open it for you, and you had to be blessed to go in. Otherwise, you touch anything, God would kill you. Anything, God would kill you. And only men could do that. Think how far we've moved away from that today. All right, I really have got to, we're only going to be able to do 7 minutes tonight. Just 7 minutes, Deacon Williams. I don't want to put time limit on our prayer, but okay, so we'll get back to, so you got the idea of the themes, right? What Leviticus is, 27 chapters, 765 verses, 735 verses, 65 verses. Then the book of Numbers, and you got it, right? So we got that, we're going to look at that, and for that woman that got smart mouth with me, bring me your hamburger, let me spit on it, that you pray over that with your smart mouth. All right, okay, everybody, hit the deck. Everybody, hit the deck. Hit the deck. Everybody on your knees. Unless you're driving your car, you're working at the workbench, hit the deck. Everybody. Everybody. 7 minutes, I got to get up, Deacon. All right? You got me? Oh, praise the Lord, all ye nations. Praise him, all ye people, for his merciful kindness is great towards us. The truth of the Lord endureth forever. Praise ye the Lord. Praise ye the Lord. Praise ye the Lord. Worthy, oh worthy are you, Lord, worthy to be thanked and praised, to worship and adore. Worthy, oh worthy are you, Lord, worthy to be thanked and praised, to worship and adore. I love you, Lord, and I lift my voice to worship you. O my soul, rejoice. Take joy, my King, in what you hear. Let it be a sweet, sweet sound in your ear. Oh, we bring the sacrifice
of praise into the house of the Lord. We bring the sacrifice of praise into the house of the Lord, and we offer up to you the sacrifices of thanksgiving, and we offer up to you the sacrifices of joy. I don't know about my time, but I thank God for the period that I had tonight. I thank God for the opportunity to share with him this morning in the Open Rewards prayer meeting in the closet. And I thank God for all of y'all sharing with us tonight in this period of prayer. I want you to know that Virtuous Myers went to the hospital to have a surgical procedure. A stent was to be placed in her, but after some other kind of testing and procedure, she did not have to have that stent. And so she's at home she needs to lose some weight. I could have told her that. She needs a doctor. She didn't have to spend a minute at a doctor. I could have told her that, but she's losing weight. Praise God. We've got a great day coming on this coming Sabbath with Mother Shekinah Seals' 100 years old celebration on this Saturday. Everybody will not be able to come, and I want everybody to be very cautious. Please, this coronavirus is getting ready to do a worse thing than it did 2 months ago. Please be cautious, everybody. Please wear a mask. Please be prayerful. And I know y'all want to be in church. I know you want to come back to worship. I know that. But trust me, this thing is getting ready to get really, really wild out here. And I'm almost at one point was cancel the event for the Mother Shekinah. But remember your tithes and your offerings. Lay no stone in front of me. Don't put anything in front of me that causes me to stumble. And don't take the Lord's money and give it to somebody else. Amen. Don't rob God. The tithe and the offering and the Cash App is most accessible to everybody. Peace out, everybody. Praise Almighty God.
The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delighteth in his way. Though he fall, he shall not be cast down, for the Lord upholds him with his hand. I shall never beg bread, I shall never be defeated, for the Lord is my refuge and my strength. I shall never beg bread, I shall never be defeated, for the Lord is my shelter and my shield. For the Lord is my refuge and my strength. I have been young and now am old, yet have I never ever seen the righteous forsaken, nor in seed begging bread. He is merciful, yeah, and he is blessed.
Now, I got a word in my mouth.
All the land anointed holy. All the land anointed holy.
ATLAH. That's what God
Welcome, everybody, to the Manning Report. I am Manning, the quintessential American, broadcasting from our studio located at our church building, which is located in the community formerly known as Harlem. But Almighty God has changed the name of this community to ATLAH. It is the second day of July. How's everybody doing? We're at 29,000 people that have lost their lives, and that's an undercount according to Johns Hopkins University to coronavirus, an instrument of Almighty God in the midst of the tribulation. Now, I got an extraordinary broadcast for you today. I want to encourage you to follow us on Twitter and on Facebook and subscribe to us on YouTube and also on Instagram, so you'll be kept abreast of all the things that are moving and the moving parts of all the things that are happening right here emanating out of Harlem, New York City. And with the Manning Report, and with the Trust in the Lord Hour, and all kinds of other extraordinary things that happen. Now today, what I want to be able to do today, in light of all the I suppose, activity around this satanic group called Black Lives Matter, I want to issue a formal statement that Black Lives Matter written on public streets is house Negro graffiti. That's just all that it is. And you'll remember going back a couple of weeks ago that the insidious mayor, Muriel Browser of the Washington, D.C., changed the name of Lafayette Park without conference and without council to Black Lives Matter Park, which was completely illegal, unconstitutional, and oppressive and racist to the core. That she changed the name of that park to Black Lives Matter Park. It will not stand, and we're going to put together a group of people that will refute her doing such an ugly deed. But not only did she do that, she wrote on one of the main streets leading to the White House, of the presidency of the United States of America. She also wrote in huge letters, Black Lives Matter. And so it became a phenomenon where others, such as Mayor Bill de Blasio here in New York City, is now giving the okay to write the same thing, Black Lives Matter, written on Fulton Street in Brooklyn, New York, to be written on 7th Avenue and 125th Street here in Harlem, New York City. And now Bill de Blasio is in a threatening and in a very childish and vindictive and vendetted way is planning to write Black Lives Matter on 5th Avenue and 57th Street in front of Trump Tower. And I'm here to tell you that it's nothing more than house Negro graffiti. That's all that it is. It's just graffiti fueled by the house Negroes, the pinch nose Negroes, the teddy bear lane Negroes. It's just the graffiti, and it ought to be treated as such. Now, you may say, well, Pastor Manning, why aren't you down with Black Lives Matter? Don't Black Lives Matter? Isn't that important, having black people suffered at the hands of black people, white people rather? And I was right, it wasn't a misstatement. No, black people have suffered at the hands of black people a factor of 1,000,000 times more than they've suffered at the hands of anybody, white police brutality, any of that. So I think that to say that their lives matter is nothing but a flat out lie. It's a lie when you see the horrific activity of black people against each other. But I'll come back to that. Let me say this, so many of you will have arguments against me. I want you to know that whatever you raise against me, whether you will call me a racist or want to call me an Uncle Tom, or you want to say I ain't black enough, or that I ain't for the black man, and every time you say that, I'm going to say John 8:32. I'm going to say John 8:32. Now, in case you don't know what that means, it means exactly this. That after 150 years of freedom from slavery and the Emancipation Proclamation, 75 years of marching and protesting and civil rights, 150 years of amendments to the Constitution, 3 amendments to the Constitution on behalf of the Negro, the slave, the colored, on behalf, and all of the civil rights movement, all of the black mayors in every major city, black police chiefs, black district attorneys, black governors, and even a black president, black people are still at the bottom of the world social register. I'm talking about they're at the bottom of the register of people like in Cambodia and in other parts around the world, what you might consider to be third world. Black people in America are still at the bottom of the world's social register after 150 years, after a black president. So black lives don't really matter. Not at all. It's just graffiti. And it ought to be treated. They ought to be arrested. You ought to arrest Muriel Bowser. You ought to arrest Bill de Blasio for writing graffiti in the streets of America. Black Lives Matter. You know, what I see happening now with writing it in front of Trump Tower, and I'm no fan or supporter of Trump. I'm one of his greatest adversaries. But I see it as a vengeful, childish act by de Blasio, who is really very childish. You ought to see the way Governor Andrew Cuomo slaps Bill de Blasio around like he's a little girl. Because he's very childish. He's not really a stable man. He's tall, but that's all. He's not really a sort of stomped down man. And Cuomo slaps him anytime he wants to slap him. Don't bring that up. Cuomo slaps him anytime he wants to slap him. And so, but you know, this whole matter now of Black Lives Matter and taking over Lafayette Park reminds me of some time ago when the Wall Street Occupy group took over Zuccotti Park down in the lower part of Manhattan, down in the historic district and the Wall Street district. They took over Zuccotti Park, stayed down there for about a month, and then they got tired and they left. You'll note also that the CHOP takeover over in Seattle, Washington ended on yesterday as well. But this whole matter of writing Black Lives Matter in the streets is nothing more than trying to occupy the streets with house Negro graffiti. That's all it is. And let me say a couple of things that I promise not to inflict myself upon you any further. The media, CNN, MSNBC, Washington Post, New York Times, and several other media are using the Black Lives Matter protests to defeat Trump. That is to say, they have found a cudgel. It's more than a cudgel. They found a weapon that the media don't really care anything about black lives. I tell you what. Ask some of these teddy bear lane Negroes that work in the media, ask them how, if they may be a reporter, maybe they work for CNN, MSNBC, maybe they're an anchor, maybe they're a technician, maybe they're a cameraman, maybe they're whatever. Ask any of them, including Alice Sharpton, Reverend Alice Sharpton. Ask them, do you really feel equal inside of MSNBC? Do you really feel equal? Ask Don Lemon, do you really feel equal inside of CNN? I mean, isn't there always somehow or another that there are two things going on in the dynamics of this racial equality business? That, first of all, white folk are walking around black folk on eggshells because they don't want to say anything because you don't know what the new, you don't know what's new now that you can't say. White folk, because black folk keep evolving. Black Lives Matter, black this, that, and the other. So white folk, even the so-called liberal ones, don't know what you can't say anymore. They don't know. And then black people are walking around with the same kind of idea, but with a chip on their shoulder, not knowing what they should. It is like watching a zoo, watching black folk and white folk work together in major law firms and on college campuses, in major media, and another place where black folk have to operate as a minority inside of the white framework of things. It is a joke watching the hypocrisy. So here, the thing that I want to say to you is that the media is using this Black Lives Matter as a weapon to take down Trump. That's right. Yeah. This puts Trump in a position They either have to become a shoe shine boy and start, and start acting like one, or become a Black Lives Matter supporter. And so the fact that he won't do it, they just keep fueling the audience that Trump is a racist, and he is. But they are using this. And the reason why I want to say that is because just as soon as this whole matter of the election is over with, the media are going to drop Black Lives Matter the way they dropped the coronavirus thing to pick up Black Lives Matter. They act like nobody was dying anymore. I swear. The media act like there was nobody dying from coronavirus once this George Floyd got lynched out there in Minneapolis. They act like won't nobody dying no more. You see nothing about there to make no report. They put up no graphs. Didn't have Dr. Fauci, Dr. Burke. They didn't have nobody talking about it. And people still dying. Is exactly how they're going to act just as soon as they can either defeat Trump or move on. The other thing I think is important, point number 2, I do have some points here, is that the white marchers in this group of Black Lives Matter, you sat there with their clenched fists. You got to be honest. It's like it's like a white man shaving his hair and putting on a baseball cap. Leave that to black people, man. White folk out there with a clenched fist. Just as soon as all this is over with, you're gonna see them look. But I think the other thing is that you have to realize, and we can talk, right? This is me. You can talk to me. Just many of these white folk, unwittingly, I should say, that many of them see black people as abused, helpless little puppies. You know why George Floyd incited people more than did Eric Garner? You know why they didn't march for Eric Garner? Same thing, died of a chokehold. Because Eric Garner was a big man. He looked like a great big bear, and he was able to give him a tussle. So they figured, well, it was almost, like he really didn't need your sympathy because he was so big. But George Floyd, who's also very tall, but you couldn't tell that by him in the street, with that 4 police officers, because that's where the video picks up, with 4 police officers on his neck. And so that's how, can I talk to you? Okay. And I promise I won't bother you no more if you don't want to hear anything after this. You see, that's how white people, especially young white people, Japheth people is who they are. They're Japheth. They're the son of Japheth, who was the 3rd son of Noah that got off the boat after the great rain and the great flood in Genesis. Japheth people. Black people are Hamites. Japheth people see Hamite people as helpless puppies, like they've been abused, and you need to call the animal rescue committee to come and rescue, because the people are just abusing. They're just abusing the poor black people so bad. Let's get out there and march from. Let's put on our casual clothes and let's get out in the street and raise a clenched fist like because they're so abused. And it was a George Floyd event that made that look like this is typical what happens to black people. They are so abused, and we have got to get out there and help them. So they get in the street. Those under the age of 30, 35 years of age out there in the street. And it really is not a Black Lives Matter protest. They're carrying the signs. But in the minds of white people, psychologically, if you were to put them through a psychological testing, psychologically for them it's a pity parade. We pity you black people. Y'all are treated so bad by the police. Look what they did to that man. Oh, that was so awful. That was so awful. You ought to see what drug dealers do to black people. You ought to see a black man choke his black wife if she ain't got the dinner, or if she says something to him he don't like. You ought to see him put a chokehold on her. You ought to see the bruises on her, on the black woman. All over America, all over Chicago, New York, Houston, Dallas, San Francisco, Miami. You ought to see the bruises on the black woman that's been choked by the black man. No, it's white people's pity party. It ain't the black. They'll go under the banner of Black Lives Matter, but they ought to tell the truth.
They ought to put a sign up, this is a pity party, because we feel that these black people, they are so abused and so helpless, and so we got to get out here and help them. But I think the other thing is that, and by the way, again, I'm Mr. John 8:32. You may not agree, you may be incensed now by what I've said. But John 8:32, you shall know the truth. The only thing that's going to set black folk free is the truth. Black and white folk, Hamites and Japheth people, and Shemites as well. But let me just say one other thing, and then I have a couple other things, and I'm going to go. As soon as these pity party white people that's marching with the Black Lives Matter, the pity party, they're so abused. Oh, they're treated so bad. Isn't that awful? Let's get out there and march with them. Come on, everybody. Let's drop our summer plans to travel to France, and we had planned a whole month on the French Riviera. But let's cancel all of that and let's take up some hotel rooms in some of the local. Does anybody know how to contact leaders of the Black Lives Matter so we can find out where their marches, so we can plan our itinerary, because we have to have our dinners and we have to have a place to sleep. I mean, we can't sleep in the ghetto, so we're gonna have to need hotel bookings. So let's call the Black Lives Matter and see if they know where they're gonna be next week, so we can make some bookings. Yeah. But let me tell you something, as soon as these white people, these Japheth people get a life, as soon as they get a life, you ain't gonna see them no more out there marching. I'm old enough to have seen the hippies. Hell, I'm old enough to know the beatniks. You don't know about the beatniks. You may know the hippies. They're marching against the war in Vietnam. Yeah, they're marching against. They're marching. They're marching trying to get LSD with Dr. Timothy Leary. They're trying to get that legalized LSD. They're trying to get marijuana. This is going back 67 years ago. I'm old enough to know all of that, right? The hippies. I'm old enough to know Laurel Canyon. I mean, you even have people like Carole King and Frank Zappa and Buffalo Springfield and a bunch of other people living in Laurel Canyon in California. I'm old enough to remember all these hippies out there on Haight and Ashbury Street. I remember the hippies sleeping in Central Park, having sex orgies in Central Park, and out there for months. You ain't seen nothing when you talk about the CHOP organization group up in Seattle, or the Zuccotti Park of the Occupy Wall Street, or the Black Lives Matter continual marching across them. You ain't seen nothing. The hippies still got y'all beat with Woodstock. But just as soon as those hippies got old enough to take over their father's business and start running those multi-million-dollar corporations and eating those good meals and living in those big houses way back up on Teddy Bear Lane, they ain't been out in the streets. And by the way, you ain't gonna see no older white folk out there unless they're looking, trying to pick up some young girl up, and maybe some homosexual guy, old white homo out there trying to pick up one of them young black boys. You might see them, but for the most part, you ain't gonna see them out there. And they ain't going. Just as soon as these young white people get a life, they ain't gonna be moving around with no Black Lives Matter anymore. So let me say this, because I know you're probably upset with me about now, about these things I'm saying. Can I tell you something? And then I promise really not to inflict myself upon you any further. Dr. King, whatever you want to say about me, may I like him, don't like him. I don't agree with all of what he did. I'm a violent person. I don't agree with nonviolence. But he was a courageous man. I mean, they killed Medgar Evers, you know that. They killed him too, by the way, Dr. King. But it took a lot of courage to do what he did. And you know what happened? That the moment the movement began to wane, the white media, the summer of freedom, once that was over with, the media, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Washington Post, they began to write about other stories and left Dr. King hanging. He got a lot of press from the March on Washington in 1963, but after that, they didn't give him any press anymore. And he wasn't really, and he didn't have people marching with him anymore. When he went to Chicago, he went to Chicago to try to he left the South and Southern segregation and racism and went to Chicago
to confront Northern racism because the media were not interested in anything he was doing with the Southern racism anymore. It was old stories. The Vietnam War was going on. They really didn't want to cover him anymore. And he had less coverage than I get now from the mainstream media. But when he went to Chicago, they picked it back up again. And then, the media, they're fickle. Even with Dr. King, they were very fickle. If it didn't suit their purposes, if it didn't make money for them, if it didn't have their white political candidate and their white political ideology, Dr. King was just like anybody else walking down the street. He was nobody to the media. And then lo and behold, Dr. King got up and in the Riverside Church in April, I think it was 1967, was it? And made that speech against Vietnam War. And after that, the media turned on him like a bunch of sharks circling a pool of blood in the sea. And that was it. And then really his life was over with. He probably contemplated committing suicide because the media dropped him. They abandoned him. They excoriated him. And not just the media, but Roy Wilkins, the NAACP and black leaders, they excoriated him. Pardon me. He was a nobody. Because their purposes had already been met politically, and they didn't need him anymore. So if they did that to Dr. King, now you may not be historically astute enough to know that. That's why you listen to me, so you can learn something. If they did that to Dr. King, Bill de Blasio is only using this house Negro graffiti called Black Lives Matter to meet his own political end. That's the only reason why he or any of these politicians, and most especially the media, I'm going to tell you, if Biden defeats Trump, Black Lives Matter won't mean a damn thing. It'll be yesterday's news. But it's a scream. But remember this. It ain't nothing but house Negro graffiti. It is a satanic lie cooked up in the bottomless pit of hell. Well, black people don't care nothing about black people. All you got to do, if you white, maybe you really don't understand me. All you got to do, brother, is get black and walk in the ghetto. And don't get black. If you're gonna get black, at least be a black woman, black man. Because if you get black to try to understand black folk, don't be a black woman. You can get the hell beat out you day and night. You can get the hell worked out you. You're going to get the hell out of you. And you still ain't going to be nobody. You still ain't going to matter if you're trying to understand. But me, I live in the hood. I've been there for 40 years. Trying to pull your coat. Black Lives Matter. House Negro graffiti. Arrest Bill de Blasio. Arrest a citizen's arrest of writing graffiti. What is the punishment for graffiti writers? Then arrest Bill de Blasio. Me. I'm James David Manning, everybody. I'm the Lord's servant. We'll come in contact with someone who is infected with the coronavirus. And you can be right there in your own home, on your own doorstep. You are going to come in contact with someone who has the coronavirus.
On Thursday, March 5th, Heather Bauer went to a casual dinner party in her town of Westport, Connecticut. 4 days later, she felt achy and feverish. She had a temperature of 101. 5 days after that, she was in the coronavirus ward at Yale Hospital, fearing that she would die.
I believe that as many as 20 to 40,000 people from Fort Greene to Harlem, New York City will die.
A well-known ER doctor here in New York who battled to save the lives of so many others. Her family now says she has taken her own life.
What we see happening is simply the hand of God in the dismantling of an unjust society.
It isn't just about making bent legs straight. It's about enabling these children to re-enter society. Someday they can marry, they can get a job, they can work. It really truly gives them their life back.
Their medical photos that we take kind of show it all. Their pre-op picture, none of them are smiling and they all look really scared. And then in their post-op picture, they have the biggest smiles on and they're so happy. I mean, it's only 2 pictures, but you can see that a journey has happened.
They never even dared to dream before, and now suddenly it's reality that they can dream and that these dreams could actually come
All right, I want to say a few other things to you with respect to the removal of all the Confederate military statutes, the attempt to congressionally change the name of many of the American military installations known as forts, removing the names of those that served as Confederate generals or soldiers in the Great Civil War of America. And this entire movement that is now been gaslighting to remove all symbols of the Confederate nation, its Confederate flag, its Confederate ideologies. I want to say a word to you that this is simply an attempt removing legitimate American history and replacing it with race war patronizing. The history, the statutes, the Stonewall Jacksons, the Robert E. Lees, the Fort Braggs, these are legitimate historical treks of the American journey, and they should not be removed. Now, you don't have to like the history of what has happened, nor the event of the Civil War, nor that the South and its Confederacy had the legitimate constitutional right to succeed from the original 13 colonies, and also to defend itself, as did the American Revolutionary War in its defense against Great Britain to gain its own freedom. The Confederate War was a war fought for states' rights. Slavery may have been the primary cause for the engendering of their raising states' rights and their right to succeed and defend themselves. Slavery may have been that, but slavery is a separate argument. The argument is that it was legitimate, and this is legitimate history. And to simply attempt to remove it now and all of its statues and icons is an attempt to use a race war at present to patronize a group of people who for the past 150 years have not been able to raise themselves up. I'm going to do a further teaching a little bit later on. And I know that you've probably got some ill thoughts about me, but that's cool. We'll deal with that. And every time you have an adverse thought about me that I'm not black enough, that I'm not with the black man, and I don't understand slavery, and I don't understand one thing after the other. Let me tell you something. I was raised up Jim Crow. I graduated from a segregated high school, never sat beside a white boy or white girl in all my education days in North Carolina. I drank from the colored water fountain more time than you can ever count. I picked more cotton. If you can't pick 200 pounds of cotton in one day, then don't tell me nothing about slavery and sharecropping and hard labor. I picked at 15 years old, I could pick 200 pounds of cotton and put it on a sheet and weigh it up at weigh up time and get paid $6 for those 200 pounds. Don't you talk to me about being a black man. Don't you talk to me about nothing. Don't you say nothing to me about the South, about segregation, about Confederacy. I was raised up in it. Don't you talk to me about that. You know nothing. And I've lived in Harlem. I'm not like these Teddy Bear Lane Negroes on television, on these news programs, professors at these Harvards or Princetons or these Columbia universities, they living white and talking black. They live on Teddy Bear Lane. They live in the white neighborhoods and try to tell you what's going on in the black neighborhoods. What a damn scream that is. I'm nobody's Teddy Bear Lane house Negro. I live in Harlem, been here for 40 years. I live among the people, so I know what I'm talking about. But let me say this to you. Let me tell you that what you see happening now with the removal of the history of America is wrong. It's American history, whether you like it or not. There are a lot of things in the Bible, in biblical history, that most people don't agree with. But nobody said, let's just take it out of the Bible because it's wrong. There are events in the Bible of David and Uriah and Bathsheba. It's not pretty, but it's history. There are events in the Bible about my father Ham kept the Jews, the Shemites, in slavery for 400 years, beat them, afflicted them, used them, possibly raped them. It's in the Bible. It ain't pretty, but we ain't gonna take it out the Bible. It belongs in the Bible. It helps us guide ourselves. And somebody said, I don't know who it was, but if we don't remember our history, we're given to repeat it. And what better way to remember our history than to keep the statues of those of Stonewall Jackson, of Robert E. Lee, to keep the statues, to keep the icon, and by all means, keep the Confederate flag. It will remind us of our history. It will remind us of how far we have come. And you know what, when I growing up in the South and having lived now in the Up South in Harlem, New York City, when I see a statue of Robert E. Lee, I don't see somebody looking down on me. I see something that I stand above. I don't care how high the statue is here. You don't have to take them down for me. I'm already looking down because I'm free from that. Robert E. Lee, Stonewall Jackson, the Confederate flag got no power on me. It ain't got no thing on me. I'm a free man. I don't need to remove the statue to have a sense of freedom. I don't need to burn somebody's flag to make sure that I'm not under somebody's cloak again. No, I'm a free man. I want to hit you again with John 8:32. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. This is a scream before God to unearth our history the way it's being unearthed now by these race war patronizers who are trying to gain the support of the Negroes. By saying we are with you. Let's tear down the history of those whose ancestry fought, bled, and died. And we're just going to erase that as if it is nothing. You know, the thing I find very interesting, however, is that on my jacket here, I have an image that I've been wearing for the last 5 years. I have proposed to the Negroes here in Harlem, why tear down the statues of the Confederates? Let's put up a statue to the Middle Passage. Let's put up an arch going up some 40 to 70 feet up into the air on 7th Avenue, 125th Street here in Harlem. Let's build an arch that is a reminder of the Middle Passage. Let's put this arch 70 feet high and 40 feet wide and have it as a memorial for the blacks or Africans that suffered during the Middle Passage and the Slave Passage. Let's build something for our history. Let's build something. Why tear down somebody else's when we can build our own? And you know I've not gotten one peep nor squeak from these Negroes when it says, why don't you stop trying to tear down other people's history and build your own? Wouldn't that be beautiful to build an arch 70 feet high, 40 feet wide, over the streets of Harlem, New York, in the background of the famous Apollo Theater on Adam Clayton Jr. Boulevard, a tribute to all those that died in the Middle Passage. I've put this out for the past 5 years. I've preached about it, put it on a signboard of our church, tried to reach out to the Negroes in Harlem, and I have not gotten one dime or one vote of support, not one. Hey, Bill de Blasio, Yay, Bill, rather than writing Black Lives Matter, why don't we put up an arch ourselves? Rather than tearing down Teddy Roosevelt, why don't we put up our own arches? You know, the other thing I find interesting, and you may agree, is that black folk are really good at tearing down stuff. They can tear down hell itself, but they haven't built any damn thing. What have they built? They gave away Harlem. They have no cities. They tore down their churches. What have they built? You show me what they have built. And they're running around here trying to tear down what someone else has built. Why don't we build an arch on 125th Street in honor of the Africans that died in the Middle Passage 70 by 40? Why don't we do that? Why? Why? You know why? Negroes aren't interested in that. I'm going to tell you, they ain't going to be interested in that. They don't want to hear nothing about building, but not come tearing down somebody else's white folks stuff. But this would be a great memorial. You can have your Stonewall Jackson, you can have your Robert E. Lee, you can have your Fort Bragg, you can have that, but we got ours too. We got ours too. Well, got Harlem. They turned that over. Now they done made Harlem white and gay. They had Harlem and then turned it over to be white and gay. It's absolutely incredible that they're talking about these statues are offensive. You know, they have no sense whatsoever of history. Now, let me say one other thing. And you're going to say, Pastor, you're wrong, and on, and you're going to get mad with me. But I'm a brother. No, tell you what. I tell you what. Before you challenge my brotherhood as a black man, if you want to call me that, I'm a Hamite, son of Pharaoh. Before you challenge my black man, you tell me how many black men you know that have fed over 1 million meals to hungry bellies in Harlem, New York City, running a breakfast program for children and running a soup kitchen for years for adults, homeless shelters, baptized over 1,000 people, and many of them had AIDS, and got in the water with them and prayed with them. They've been involved in homosexual activity, and AIDS jumped on them as a punishment from God. And yet I baptized and prayed with them and healed them, got them well, and stood them up. You tell me if Eddie Glaude has ever done anything like that. Tell me if Cornel West, tell me if Van Jones, all these Teddy Bear Lane Negroes are either married to somebody white or living in white neighborhoods or don't even recognize what their skin color is, because they definitely don't have a character of black folk. No, no, I live here. I'm not a Teddy Bear Lane Negro. I'm a brother. But having said that, none of these Negroes can hold a candle to my blackness, if you want to call it black. Now, I'm a Hamite, but they can't hold a candle. They can't hold a candle to the work that I've done, the love that I've demonstrated for my brothers, the people I've helped sit on their feet, got them on their feet, got them out of jail. You tell me how many people Cornel West has done, Eddie Glaude, Van Jones, Liz Gunnarsson, any of these freaks running around here talking about Black Lives Matter. But so listen, they tear down statues. Black people are good at tearing up stuff. And they never built nothing in Africa. They never built nothing. Somebody sent me a picture about some, looked like some sort of rock wall from some Shawshank Redemption over there in Zimbabwe, that they built that. We built this. They never built nothing in Africa. They never built no, you don't see any statues. You don't see a great monument. You don't see any Taj Mahals. You don't see any Eiffel Towers. You don't see any of that in all of the continent of Africa. You don't see it because they're not builders, but they damn sure know how to tear stuff down. And now they're going for tearing down the Confederate statues, the flag, and everything. You see how sick this is. So you say to them, well, you know, okay, I'm a little queasy about trying to agree with you, Pastor Manning, because you speak too much truth, and I've been living a life of lies all my life, so I'm uneasy going over to the side of truth. But I will say this, you're right. Why don't they just build that arch as a memorial of the Middle Passage? And don't give me some business about that little 3-foot arch, a statue they got up there in Riverside Park, a Middle Passage. That thing ain't, I mean, if I spit, I would knock it down. It's so small. Why don't you, we say, why don't they, you're right, Pastor Manning, maybe I think some of the statues of the Confederacy should come down in the flag, but why don't black people just build something for the damn selves? Why don't they build something like what you're suggesting? You say you've been suggesting this for the last 5 years. Why isn't this on the major media? Why aren't they talking about this? Why aren't the Washington Post and the New York Times and CNN, why aren't they promoting that they really care about black people? That black people's lives that died in the Middle Passage really matter. Let's put up a monument. Let's put up a statue to them. Why aren't we hearing about this? The reason why you don't hear about it, because both black and white folks don't give a damn. Black lives don't matter. Black statues don't matter. They don't care. And what's worse, I mean, it's one thing just be, like I got other things to do. They are incomparable. I've lived with the black man. I've been in prison with him. I've slept in the cells with him. I've sat and talked with him. I've marched with him. The black man's got a problem. He doesn't understand. He doesn't understand that he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand. He doesn't know. Why don't you build a statue? He got Harlem. There's not one. Well, you got some little statue of Adam Powell and one of Harriet Tubman. But why don't you build something rather than specializing and tearing down stuff? He doesn't understand that. God gave him Harlem, and he turned it over to the white man. Tore down his churches? Sure he did. The black man tore down his churches where to meet Jesus Christ. He don't understand that he does not understand. The black man does not understand that he does not understand the world. So here you go. Now tearing down stuff. Well, he's good at that. He's proficient at that. They do very little building, if they do any building at all. And now they're taken to graffiti writing, writing Black Lives Matter in the street. They've abandoned the Apollo Theater. It's a sin and a shame and a scandalous before God that the one theater that they did have, they don't come to it. They don't come to the Apollo. They've abandoned it. It's become a museum. Sold the Lenox Lounge where Billie Holiday did her best singing. It's gone, wiped completely out of history. Turn Harlem white. No, there's just something wrong with the black man. He doesn't understand that he doesn't understand the world. And then you got these white sympathizers, to feel that the black man is just a little puppy. He's being abused. We got to go rescue him because he's being abused. Let's take down all the statutes. Now, let me tell you something. I'm in favor of the statutes being put back up, and I think that there ought to be quick legislation to do two things. One is to take to court Muriel Bowser and Bill de Blasio for writing graffiti of Black Lives Matter in the street. And then there ought to be court battles. And people ought to stand up, not because you're against black people, if you're white or Japheth, but you ought to stand up. No, the Confederate South and the Civil War and slavery is a part of our history. As ugly as it may be, it's still historical. And you don't improve the future by destroying the history of the past. It's a damn fool that thinks for 1 second that taking down a statue or pulling down a Confederate flag that you're gonna make anybody's life, especially the life of a black man, better. His life ain't gonna get better till you tell him the truth. Don't you see how long he's marched? He's been marching for 70 years. He's been burning and looting and bitching and moaning for 70 years, and he still ain't free. He ain't gonna get free until you tell him the truth. And that's who I am. I'm Mr. John 832. You shall know the truth, homeboy and homegirl, and whatever you Japheth people want to refer to yourselves as. And that truth shall set you free. I'm the Lord's servant. My name is James David Manning. This is a bit of a news blog we do looking at spiritual wickedness in high places for the most part, making some observations about it and giving people a biblical foundation to the way of interpreting rather than have Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham or
Janine Pirro or Anderson Cooper or Rachel Maddow or Don Lemon, Rush Limbaugh interpret what's going on in the world. You come to me and I'll tell you based on what the Word of God says. They'll just give you their worldly, sinful view. But the Manning Report will tell you what God has said, whether to say yea or nay, whether to go or to stay. You'll be led by the word of Almighty God. Come to the Manning Report on a daily basis to interpret the spiritual wickedness in high places, because there's plenty of it that's going on. And so I'm the Lord's servant, James David Righteous Rebel Manning, and I'm here to serve you with news and information. This is a bit of a...
There's mourning in America. Today, more than 60,000 Americans have died from a deadly virus Donald Trump ignored. With the economy in shambles, more than 26 million Americans are out of work, the worst economy in decades. Trump bailed out Wall Street, but not Main Street. This afternoon, millions of Americans will apply for unemployment, and with their savings run out, many are giving up hope. Millions worry that a loved one won't survive COVID-19. There's mourning in America, and under the leadership of Donald Trump, our country is weaker and sicker and poorer. And now, Americans are asking, if we have another 4 years like this, will there even be an America?
Paid for by the Lincoln Project, which is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Someone said that a lie can travel around the world several times before truth can get its boots on. Truth is very lonely as phenomena, as an idea, as an instrument in a kingdom that is ruled by the father of lies, John 8:44 and John 8:32. That Satan, the devil, that dragon, is the father of lies, and he is the king of this kingdom. Jesus is coming back to establish his kingdom, but this one is not his. So truth is very lonely. But I want to say to you, you can call me Mr. John 8:32 for my brothers, both Hamite, Japheth, and Shemite, that the only thing that's going to make America a nation of freedom and harmony and unity and peace, if that were possible, will be truth. We've had the segment of lies and marching and protesting. And so I want to say that to you because I want to make an appeal to you. I want to ask you to help me to stop the sellout of the community formerly known as Harlem that is turning white and gay. It is almost like going to Chinatown, a little Italy, and turning Chinatown white and gay, a little Italy, white and gay. It is an assault upon the urban planning and the idea of people living together in a homogeneous way for a group of white people to just come into a black neighborhood and turn it white and gay. You know, I'm here on the island of Manhattan, and so is Harlem. It's a beautiful island. And every time I think about my 4th and 5th grade stories about how the Pilgrims and the settlers were able to buy the Isle of Manhattan for $24, and I suppose that could have been a pretty good amount of money in those years, and some beads, trinkets, and mirrors, and they bought it from the Indians, from the Mohawk, from the Squaws, from the Cherokees, from those that are part of the various tribes of Indian got together and smoked the peace pipe and sold this beautiful island to the white folk and turned it white and capitalist. And now that same old spirit from the ancestors of the Pilgrims and the settlers of America has moved to Harlem, except now they've become gay, homosexual, LGBT, they've become lesbians, they've become bisexuals, they've become trannies, they've become gay, and they have become queers. and they put together $24, the equivalent, and some beads, and they bought Harlem from the black man who had a king. He had a flagship nation in Harlem, and they bought it. And they're in the process now, after having bought it, turning it white and gay. And I'm asking you to help me save the monument that meant so much to people like Dr. John Latson and Dr. Earl B. Moore, and Pastor Stanley, Dr. Wall, and so many of the black pastors and preachers, and there are too many to name, to help me save the integrity, because they're tearing down the Renaissance Ballroom, they've torn it down, they've torn down the Lenox Lounge. The way they're tearing down statues now in the Confederate South and tearing down the Confederate flags, they're doing the same thing here in Harlem. They're tearing down the icons of the history of the great pastors that preached, the Adam Clayton Powell that preached in this community and was able to do, the Dr. Walter L. Hardings that were able to do such great work, and I'll even put in Dr. Timothy Horn. They're tearing down that work, Dr. Hudson Green and Dr. Wyatt T. Walker. They're tearing down all of those statues and icons of the great, glorious history of Harlem, and they're turning it white and gay. I'm gonna ask you to consider that. Those of you who are appalled at what you are supportive of the tearing down of the Confederate statues, and those of you who also are appalled, don't let them turn Harlem white. It was all that black people had. It's all that they had. They tore up Overtown. They put Interstate 95 and destroyed Overtown for all my Floridian friends. Don't let them turn. Help me. I'm standing as the Iwo Jima flag bearer of the black man in Harlem. In the red blood of Jesus Christ, I'm standing in the Iwo Jima stand, and maybe the last man standing, but don't let them run me out of Harlem. Don't let them be victorious. Pray for me, support me. If you don't understand the truth that I speak, it isn't because it isn't truth, it just may be above your pay grade to understand being as close to God's heart and loving the black man enough to get down in the baptismal pools when he told you that he's festering with AIDS. And yet you get there with no protective clothing and you baptize him to the tune of 1,000 and you pray for him. No, don't let them turn Harlem white and gay. White people can live anywhere they want. They got money, they got 10 times the money of black folk. They got old money, they got stocks, they got businesses, they got investment. They can live anywhere they want. Why they want to take the black man's one sheep that he has, the one thing that he had, and he didn't have enough sense because the black man don't understand. He really don't understand. He don't understand that he does not understand the world. You don't understand it. He doesn't understand the world. And he's selling it to the white man who has told him also to become gay. I'm James David Manning, everybody. Help me. I'm here in Harlem and I ain't going nowhere. You can find me at ATLAH.org. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook. Subscribe to me on YouTube. It's all there. So you can keep abreast of all the moving parts of what's going to happen as we become victorious. Stand with me.
They're coming. 50,000 righteous men living for the Lord. All the land anointed. Holy. All the land anointed. Holy. ATLAH. ATLAH. That's what? Glasses. That's what? Glasses. ATLAH. ATLAH. That's what? Glasses. That's what? Glasses. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Da-da-dum. Da-da-da. ATLAH's coming. ATLAH's coming. 50,000 righteous men living for the Lord. All the land anointed holy. Yes.
You will come in contact with someone who is infected with the coronavirus. And you could be right there in your own home, on your own doorstep. You are going to come in contact with someone who has the coronavirus.
On Thursday, March 5th, Heather Bauer went to a casual dinner party in her town of Westport, Connecticut. 4 days later, she felt achy and feverish. She had a temperature of 101. 5 days after that, she was in the coronavirus ward at Yale Hospital, fearing that she would die.
I believe that as many as 20 to 40,000 people from Fort Greene to Harlem, New York City will die.
A well-known ER doctor here in New York who battled to save the lives of so many others. Her family now says she has taken her own life.
What we see happening is simply the hand of God in the dismantling of an unjust society.
Let's get close to the Lord. Oh, yeah. Let's get close to the Lord. Oh, yeah. Living life from day to day. We so busy, lose our way. Feeling empty and confused. Well, my friend, just one thing to do. Let's get close to the Lord. Oh, yeah. Let's get close to the Lord. Oh, yeah. Smile with laughter, but inside still could not find peace of mind. There's a hunger, yes, it's true. We forget we were made for you. Let's get close to the Lord. Oh, yeah. Let's get close to the Lord. Oh, yeah. Take my burden and my pride. Sinful life don't satisfy. Only Jesus has the touch. Heal our guilt and lift us up. Let's get close to the Lord. Oh, yeah. Let's get close.
Welcome to today's current events class. I am Sabbath Rachel LaFleur. Welcome everyone to this week's edition of the current events class. As you can see here, I have many of our students here. My name is Sabbath Rachel LaFleur, and we are going to do a recap of the school year with some of our students from the various grades, from Great Tomorrow's Elementary, Great Tomorrow's Middle School, and also ATLAH High School. Now, this is not our entire student body. These are just a few of the students from our schools, but again, I wanted to do a school end of the year recap with the students that we have before you today. So let me quickly introduce the students to you as they are seated here. I have Truth Lafleur, who is a 7th grader in our school. I have Glory and Zipporah Lafleur. Glory is a 5th grader who just graduated, by the way, and her sister Zipporah is a 6th grader in our school. I'm sorry, a 7th grader in our school. I have Genesis Lewis, who is a 7th grader in our school. I have Israel Lewis, who is a 9th grader in our school, to his sophomore year in ATLAH High School. I have Anna Lafleur, who is a 5th grader who just graduated as well. I have Shadrach, who is a 3rd grader in our school. I have Layla and Yegu, who is a junior in ATLAH High School, getting ready to go into her senior year. I have Twain McIntosh, who is a 7th grader in our school. Amir Cabre, who is a 6th grader in our school. Charles Adams, who just graduated from 8th grade, going on to ATLAH High School. I have David Solomon Zarek Rope, who is a 5th grader who just graduated as well. I have Ishmael Al-Haimi, who is a junior going on to his senior year. And last but not least, I have Brahima Traore, who also just graduated from the 5th grade. That was a mouthful. Welcome, everyone. How are you all doing today? Okay. So we want to do an end of the school recap. And again, this is not our entire student body. Some of the students were unable to make it today. And so with those of you who are seated here today, I wanted to ask you all a couple of questions. And I want to start off with the first question, and that is, obviously you all know we've been home the last 3 months as a result of the coronavirus. But in this school year, I want to ask you from September, as we started this school year of 2019-2020 school year, my first question to you all is, what has been your most memorable moment or time in this school year? And so I want to know from you, as we are recapping this school year, what was the most memorable time, or what was the best time for you in this school year? So let me start off with Israel Lewis. Israel?
The ski trip or the Christmas concert.
Okay, so the ski trip or the Christmas concert was the most memorable time for you. Okay, all right. Anna Lafleur, what about you?
The ski trip and the Christmas.
Okay, the same as Israel. Zarek, David Solomon, what about you?
For me, it was a ski trip. It was a ski trip.
Okay. Amir, what about you?
I think it was a ski trip.
Okay, so far everyone is saying a ski trip. Layla, let me come to you.
It would have to be the Christmas concert and the ski trip.
Okay. Zipporah and Glory, what about you?
Mine's a ski trip.
Yours was a ski trip. Glory?
I don't have a memorable moment.
Are you telling me that there's not one moment during the school year that you really enjoyed, Glory? I find that very hard to believe. All right, let me move on to Truth.
Well, it was Canada and the ski trip.
Okay, Niagara Falls, okay, and a ski trip. Genesis, what about you?
When we went to Canada and saw
Okay. Twain, did I get to you yet?
No.
What was your most memorable time?
Christmas concert.
The Christmas concert, okay. Charles, what about you?
The ski trip and the Christmas concert.
Okay. And Brahima?
Ski trip and the Christmas concert.
All right. Ishmael, did I get to you?
No, you didn't.
Okay.
I was just sitting here waiting. I mean, yeah, most likely it would have to be the ski trip, 'cause I never went skiing. But I also just do kind of miss like everything in a sense. You could say like the whole school year. I kind of miss it because I was able to always hang out with my friends. So
Okay, all right. So for most of you, it was the ski trip and the Christmas concert, right? And for most of you, that was your first time actually skiing, right? How many of you was that your first time skiing? Okay. And how many of you was that your first time actually participating in the Christmas concert? All right. That was your first time. Okay. All right. And so let me ask you this question. And remember, when you want to talk, just unmute yourselves when you want to speak so that all of you can be heard, okay? Those of you who it was your first time skiing, you said that was your most memorable moment. Tell me why that was the best moment for you throughout in this school year. Again, who was it that skied for the first time? Okay, so Ishmael, tell me why that was considered one of the best moments for you.
well, because like you said, it was my first time skiing, so
Yeah.
I have to remember that. I mean, next time, any time before that, I'm gonna remember that day. And also because it was first time, and the feeling going down the hill and stuff, that's kind of memorable. Going down that hill at that speed. I mean, you first feel like you're gonna die, but then you kind of figure out how to land, and you're like, oh, actually, this wasn't that bad.
So you really enjoyed that experience?
Yeah, it was memorable. But the only part maybe I didn't like is when the shoes just got really uncomfortable.
Yeah, it did after a while. Charles, that was your first time skiing as well. Tell me why that was the best moment for you this school year.
It was the best moment because it was my first time skiing, and watching everyone fall was very funny.
Okay. David Solomon, why was that one of the most memorable time for you? What did you enjoy most about the experience of skiing?
I enjoyed going down the hill, and because it was my first time, so like I enjoyed the feeling of going down the hill.
Okay, you enjoyed
Like,
the feeling. Okay. And Truth, that was your first time as well, you stated. What did you enjoy most about it?
I liked going down the hill. It was fun, and the breeze.
Okay, so most of you like going down the hill. That was the best part for skiing for you. Now, those of you who chose the Christmas show, Twain, I remember you were one who chose the Christmas show. Tell me why that was the best moment for you this school year.
It was the best moment because I get to it's like the third time going on a Christmas show. So it was fun being up on the stage, singing, dancing. Yes.
Okay, so you enjoy singing and dancing, is that it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This past weekend, we had the graduation ceremony for those of you who are graduates. And the video that I put together, I was looking through many of the video clips and the pictures that I had, and I realized that we did a lot this school year. Not just the ski trip, not just the Christmas show, but remember, we went to see the Radio City Music Hall show. That was another experience that we had. And you brought up the Niagara Falls, Canada trip. That was another experience that we had. Remember, we did apple picking. Not all of you, but the elementary school went on that trip. That was another experience. And watching the medieval event and all of the various things we did this school year. We did a lot this school year. We certainly did a lot this school year. Now, let me turn a corner and ask you all this. Because we've been home for almost 4 months now, school ended last week for us, but we're going to continue to go on. As you know, that summer camp is going to begin July 6th for us, which is the Monday following Independence Day, July 4th. We're going to actually start our summer camp in the courtyard and doing various things, activities with you as students. So let me ask you all this question, being home now, almost 4 months now. What has been the hardest thing with dealing with being at home away from school these past 4 months? What would you say was the most challenging or the most difficult experience that you've had to go through being home these past 4 months? And you may want to take a minute to think about that for a second. What would you consider, again, to be the most challenging part of not being in school and being home? Shadrach, what would you say?
Well, I would say like missing my friends and my cousins and doing my work downstairs in my classroom.
Okay, so that was been the most difficult for you, right?
Yes.
Not being able to be around your friends. Genesis, what about you?
It could be getting my work in because sometimes you just don't feel like doing it or turning it in on time, but I have to like do it or it would have been a consequence. So that was the hardest part.
Okay, so for you, Genesis, you're saying the hardest for you was actually getting your work done and getting it turned in on time. Has anybody else had that experience that Genesis just mentioned? Did anyone else have that experience? Zipporah, I see your hand raised. Okay, Shadrach, Layla, I see your hand raised. Okay, Amir, what about you? What's been the most challenging time for you?
My hardest part was talking to my teacher over the phone.
Okay, and what do you mean by that? You mean that the fact that you had to talk to her on the phone and not be able to talk to her face to face?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay. Brahima, what about you?
Not being able to be with my friends and I barely get help, but when I'm at the school, the teachers always help me.
Okay, all right. The teachers always help you. All right. So always having the teacher there in front of you to help you was the most challenging, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Israel, what about you?
I would say like waking up on time because you don't want to get out of bed and stuff.
Okay, so being able to wake up on time has been the most challenging for you. All right. Leela?
I would have to say, like Genesis said, like turning in the work on time. Like, I mean, I do my work, but like sometimes, like there was times where like I had to prioritize. Okay, do I want to watch this, or like should I do my work? And it was like between those two things, and like actually trying to get the work in on time, like because you know you're home, so you just want to relax, you know. But there is a time for like everything, work, school, and everything. So I had to try to prioritize that and try to get that done.
Okay. Anna, what would you say would be the most challenging for you being home these past few months?
The most challenging for me was not being able to be with my friends and everything, and also it was kind of distracting at home because instead of doing my work, I see all the fun things my siblings are doing, and I want to do it instead of doing my work.
Okay. Truth, what about you?
For me, it was not being able to go outside because I miss being outside all the time.
Okay, so that was the most challenging for you. All right. And Charles, what would you say was the most challenging for you these past few months?
As Israel said, waking up on time because all I want to do is just stay in bed.
Okay, you want to stay in bed. Twain, what about you?
I agree what Amir said about talking to your teacher on your phone without talking to them face to face.
Okay, all right. So you would rather speak to your teacher face to face as well. Let me ask you all this question in light of what Layla has stated, because she stated that trying to keep herself, and Anna mentioned this as well, trying to keep yourself focused and not be distracted was one of the things that was challenging for you because you were home. Did you all pretty much find that you had to push yourself even more so to get your schoolwork done? Because at home you're in your own environment, and so as Layla stated, you're more relaxed because you are home. Did you find it difficult, or did you find that you had to push yourself even more to get your work done as opposed to if you were actually in school? Ishmael?
Well, that's like a half-half for me, because on one half, yes, sometimes I felt like wanting to do my work, but then I'd rather just play on my games or just like binge on Netflix. But on other times, I would maybe just wake up, I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna do some work today, because it'd be like my mindset. I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna do some work. I don't know. It's half-half for me. Sometimes, yes, I feel like I would have to push myself, but other times I feel like I wouldn't have.
Okay. And Amir, what about you? Did you have to push yourself more to get your work completed?
Yeah, I agree with Ishmael because sometimes I wake up and I want to play on the game.
Okay. But do you even though you want to play on a game, do you push yourself, instead of playing on a game, do you push yourself with those moments to do your schoolwork, or do you give in to those moments and just play your game?
I push myself.
To get your schoolwork done? Okay, all right. Now let me ask you all this question. Obviously the most difficult for many of you, waking up, getting up out of bed, getting your schoolwork done, staying focused, not being distracted, getting your work in on time. That's what I've heard from most of you. So let me do the reverse of that. And what we're going to do is I'm going to take a quick break, and I'm going to ask you all this question. And you can think about this question while we take our break. The question is, I'm going to ask you now, what is the most enjoyable time that you have experienced since you have been home during these past few months? And I'll give you one example. I saw a commercial that was talking about the coronavirus. And one of the things this young boy stated, he was a teenager, he said, I've actually been having dinner with my family every night now. And so for him, that was one of the most enjoyable moments of having been home for these past few months, because prior to that, he wasn't able to have dinner with his family the way that he does now since he's been home quarantined. So I want you all to think about that as we take the break. And then when we come back from the break, I'm going to ask you all that question. What would you consider to be the most enjoyable time that you have experienced during this time of quarantine? Let's take a break. And then when we come back from the break, you all can get ready to answer that question. We'll be back, everyone. Stay tuned.
I love the school. At the beginning, I had Zarek only, and it was hell for me to find a peaceful, productive, a good school. After Miss Grisby is a lady that does the after-school program, she told me several times to go to the school. And finally I went, and it's been a complete difference for Zarek because he experienced different schools. And the kids, the little ones, they were so used to go to pick up Zarek that everybody knew them before they were enrolled. So the school has been like a second family, like a family for the kids and for me, and they feel safe there.
And my child of the King, I pledge to not be racist against any ethnicity. It doesn't matter what color you are. All that matters is that we are one nation and one for all. We stand for righteousness. When the world comes together as one, we will be the masterpiece that represents the glory of God. Let us all stand together until we die with righteousness and not wickedness. Amen. I am a child of the King, his servant at all times. I am strong. I am blessed. I am special because of the Lord. I am chosen by God, a member of his royal family. I will succeed in all my studies because the Lord is with me. Amen.
You guys know I love you, but let me tell you, it's been like a 360 because not only they've been in charter schools, we moved to North Carolina for a year, so they had to experience a whole different state. And when I came back, I put them back into the same charter school they were in just because it was easy and they had their information. But I was looking for a summer camp for them, and I found out through a parent that you guys have summer camp. So I've passed by a million times, but I had no idea you guys had the summer camp. And once they were enrolled in summer camp and I found out about the school, it was like easy peasy because the kids had such a great time. They always spoke so highly of everyone there, and they can't stop talking about all the good food that I could never have time to eat, but they're always talking about how, like, it's just like they felt it was an immediate, like, and immediately I knew that it was the right choice because their reactions, they had never said that about another school, you know. Wow. like other students, they've been in other, you know, charter schools and this, and you try to look at, you know, all the reviews and you try as a parent to make sure that they're happy. Obviously, that's our number one. So once they in summer camp, they were already ecstatic. I already knew it was going to be the right fit, and I am unbelievably grateful because I feel like I'm just like I lost my mom 2 years ago, and she was like the, you know, she was the only person I trusted with my kids. But now I feel like the school is my like they said is my second family. Like I know when I drop them off that I don't have to worry about it at all.
Well, you know, they love it. They love going there. They don't have a problem. And coming from, like I said, I used to homeschool them. I actually gave them options. I said, do you want to go back to public school? Do you want to? And ATLAH came up, and I said, do you want to give the school a try? They actually picked the school.
Oh, wow.
Wow. They picked it. So, and then I said, okay, let's go. And I checked it out, and I put them in, and I haven't had any problems. They feel safe. They get along with everyone. They learn at their own pace, which is great. You know, they're not, you know, pushed to, you know, just, you know, if they, for instance, I know my sons, one of them has trouble with math. He doesn't pick algebra up as quick. So they work with him, you know, and they work with him at his pace. So he feels confident now. And that's something that I felt that got torn down when they were in, originally in public school. That confidence that they're, you know, they're just because they need a little more time to learn a subject doesn't mean that they're dumb. You get
That's
what I'm
right.
saying?
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So definitely putting them in ATLAH has built their confidence.
Welcome to today's current events class. I am Sabbath Rachel Lafleur. All right, we are back from the break. And again, my name is Sabbath Rachel Lafleur. I'm seated here with some of the students from Great Tomorrow's Elementary, Middle, and ATLAH High School. And we are doing a recap of the school year. So before the break, I asked you all a question, and I hope you all have thought about it. And the question was, what have you enjoyed the most being home these past few months? And again, remember the example I gave you was I saw a commercial with a young boy who stated he's able to eat dinner with his family every night, which was enjoyable for him. So for you, what would you say you have enjoyed the most being home these past few months? Let's start with Brahima.
I enjoy getting a lot of sleep, and when I wake up, go brush my teeth and then play with my iPad.
Okay, so basically you've enjoyed sleeping and playing with your iPad. Okay. Anyone else? Ishmael, what would you say?
Well, I mean, that sleep thing does sound very nice. But mostly it would have to be hanging out with my friends online. Because, you know, when we hang out with them, we're just always just sitting there, acting stupid, having fun. You know, it's enjoyable, you know, because sometimes you come home from school, you don't have time to hang out with your friend people, like, online like that. So I got to hang out with them more, and I like that. We have, like, fun and stuff.
Okay. And how do you hang out with your friends online? Do you do what we're doing now through video?
Well, yeah, it's not really, call each other, FaceTimes, just calls in general. Maybe sometimes we'll play we'll just do chats on the video game, or maybe we'll just mostly it's like that, like phone calls, video game chats, or FaceTime.
Okay, all right. David Solomon, what would you say?
I enjoy being home with my siblings.
Really? You enjoyed being home with your siblings the most. Now, what I do know, David Solomon, that you did not mention, and I was waiting for you to mention it, was that you actually, during this time at home, you got a keyboard. Your mom bought you a keyboard, correct? And so you've been playing the keyboard, and so you've learned a lot of songs, how to play a lot of various songs that you shared with me, right? So I'm sure that you enjoy doing that, right? Okay, all right, so that's good. So you were able to pick up something that you actually enjoy doing as far as playing the keyboard, and this was your first time actually doing that. And so because I know that you've spoken to me several times about, Sister LaFleur, I've learned how to play a certain song. It seems to me that you really enjoy doing that. So I would definitely say that that's one of the things that you have enjoyed doing. But being home with your siblings, that's a great answer and response. Truth, what would you say for you?
Well, this year for my father's birthday, we spent the whole day together. Like, we played Kahoot, and we had like more family bonding time. I feel like if we were not quarantined on his birthday, then we wouldn't spend as much time with him as we did while we were quarantined.
Okay, so you enjoy spending time with your family more during this time, is what you're saying? Okay, Layla, what about you?
I would have to say, like, I guess being at home, because, like, just like being at home myself, because like 5 days a week or 6 days a week I'm at the church, I'm at school. So like when I come home, like sometimes my mom is not at work, my mom is still at work, or like she's just coming home from work. So the fact that like we wake up and we able to see each other more, and that's really it.
Okay, so you would say just like Truth, because it sounds like what you're saying to me is you're spending more time or you're seeing your mom more now than you did prior to this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Israel, what would you say would be your most enjoyable time?
As it say, like hanging out, like on video games, but I've been socializing with my family more.
Mm-hmm.
What else? I mean, I can like edit videos and stuff for like Pastor Manning. And that's it basically.
Okay, so you have been spending more time with your family as well.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Amir, what about you? What have you enjoyed the most?
I enjoyed spending time with my brother, and ever since the coronavirus outbreak, I noticed that he follows me a lot.
What do you mean he follows you a lot? He follows what you do or just follow you around the house?
Yeah, he follows what I do. Like, for example, if I want to take a nap, he'll do the same.
Oh, wow. That's very interesting. I'm going to come back to that because you just raised a thought in my mind. Genesis, what about you?
It's when me and my siblings play like games, or if I'm just phoning my friends and we'll play games, stuff like that.
Okay, so you have been bonding more with your siblings is what you would say, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right, that's great. For Glory and Zipporah, let's see what you have to say. What have you enjoyed the most being home these past few months? Zipporah, let's start with you.
Mine is being more with my siblings, to communicate with them more and watching Avatar with them.
Okay, and Glory, what about you?
Just watching TV.
So you just enjoyed watching television, Glory? Okay, all right. Honor?
I enjoyed being at home with my family more, and not having to come home late because I have taekwondo after school every day. And yeah, that's about it.
Okay, so you enjoy being with your family as well. And Shadrach?
Well, I enjoy being with my family and doing all the activities with them. And on Sunday, we get to have our own movie night and eat popcorn and stuff like that.
Okay, so from what I'm hearing from most of you is that a lot of you are bonding with your family more. Whether you have siblings or even friends, you are still socializing with your friends through video or over the phone and so forth. And so that's great. That's great that you are doing more bonding with your family members. Now, Amir raised a thought, and that is he says that his younger brother follows him around or follows what he does. As an older sibling, because Amir is an older sibling. So for those of you who are older siblings, like Zarek, you're an older sibling. Truth, you are an older sibling. Zipporah, you are an older sibling. Do you find that your younger siblings are following you more so, or doing the things that you are doing as an older sibling, or it's the quite opposite? Who else is an older sibling here? Israel, I'm sure Genesis does not follow you around the place, right?
No, I stopped her from doing that.
Okay, so Genesis, your brother says he actually stops you from doing that. Now, Brahima, you have a younger sibling, Musa, who is about, I think he's 2.5 or 3 years old now. Does he follow you around as well?
Yes.
He does. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Every time I'm trying to go to buy something or something, he's always trying to come out, but he can't because I closed the door too fast. And then sometimes I scared, so it doesn't like close on his fingers.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you all this question now. Let's turn the corner. Let me ask you all this question. And the question is, imagine the world as a canvas, right? I want you to think about this question as I'm saying it. Imagine the world as a canvas, and I give you a paintbrush. And I tell you to paint yourself in the world 20 years from now. 20 years from now, right? Again, the world is a canvas, and I give you this paintbrush, and I say, okay, paint yourself in the world 20 years from now. What would you paint? And that's another way of asking, where do you see yourself in the next 20 years? Or let's say 10 to 20 years. As a person, how do you see yourself in the next 10 to 20 years is the question. Who wants to answer that first? You may need a few minutes to think. Oh, okay, Shadrach has his hand up first. All right, Shadrach, let's hear what you have to say.
Well, in the next 10 to 20 years, I will actually think I'll be a doctor.
Okay, so you paint yourself as a doctor in the world. Do you know exactly what kind of doctor you want to be?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay, you just know. Now, tell me why you paint yourself as a doctor. What about being a doctor do you like?
Well, first, I actually like to I actually like to go to the every time when I'm like I have to go to the doctor's, like the nurse's office.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like going there.
Okay. So do you like the fact that they are helping people? Is that what you like about it? That the fact that you can help someone?
Yes, I would like to help. I would like to help people.
Okay. Anyone else? How would you paint yourself on that canvas? Zipporah?
I would do it as me in a more improved world, and like everybody's just not like everyone's not like this century and stuff. They're like more cleaner and more nicer and stuff. Now, no commotion around the world.
Okay, so it sounds like you're painting a 1,000-year reign to me. That's what it sounds like you're painting. That's a great answer. Thank you for that. Honor, I saw your hand. How would you paint yourself? Now, you stated during your valedictorian speech that you're not sure what you want to be when you get older. But if you could think about how you would paint yourself, what would we see?
I'm still not really sure, but...
Do you have any idea?
Maybe a firefighter or engineer, like one of those.
Okay, all right. All right, that's not bad at all. Layla, how would you paint yourself?
I mean, I don't really know yet. Like, I'm leaning against like two things right now, but it will be something great, but I'm just not like too sure right now.
Okay, so you're not sure, but there are two things. What are the two things that you are thinking about?
Okay, like, so I was thinking, like, at first, like, for the longest, I was thinking about being a lawyer, but I don't know. After Hallelujah, she went through a lot.
You talking about Snow River?
Yeah. I don't know, but then I was also thinking about being a nurse because it's a long story to that, but those are like the two things that I was leaning towards too.
Well, let me tell you, Layla, having known you as a student, being a teacher, that Mrs. Now River was absolutely excellent this past Sabbath, and the words that she spoke to the graduating class and students as a whole. But I will tell you that she is a prime example of a student. She was exactly where you are. Where you are right now, she was exactly where you are. And she was able to achieve the things that she has because of the ministry and because of the school. So I will say to you, to encourage you, that if that is what God has called you to do, you have it within you to do it. Don't think because that there are challenging moments along the way that you can't do it. You can do it. You can certainly do it. So don't be discouraged about that. You can certainly do it. And you certainly have the support of the school and the church if that's what God is leading you to do. All right? So don't forget that.
Okay, thank you.
Ishmael, how do you paint yourself in the future?
Well, it'd be strange, but I think I would just leave that little place. I would leave it blank in a sense, because
Really? Why?
I don't know what the future holds for me. And I don't know
Okay.
whatever will happen, or will it even succeed. I don't like it, because if you think too far ahead, you'll get stressed out, and then maybe the thing you're trying to do won't work out because you're stressed about it too much.
But how would you, if you had this paintbrush and I just gave you this paintbrush and I just said, Ishmael, just paint yourself. Paint yourself 10 or 20 years from now. Don't even think about all of these things that you're talking about, the stressing and thinking too hard. Just paint. Just be free to paint yourself. What would we see? What would you paint?
I feel like I would make a mess. I already see it.
What would you paint?
I mean, there's a lot of things in my head. So it's like I have a lot of options about what I would want to be and stuff. Like artist, like not like you know, like an artist,
right?
Design, manga writer in general.
Okay.
I have a lot of ideas. That's why I would mostly choose to leave it blank, because I have so much I haven't really decided yet in a sense.
Okay.
I have so many things that I was like, oh, I'd like to do this, but you know, there's so many I haven't focused on that one now. Like, you know what, I really want to do this.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. That's fair. David Solomon, what about you? How would you paint yourself?
I would paint myself as an engineer. Not an engineer, an architect.
Ah, an architect. Okay, that's great. And what about architecture do you like?
Ever since my mom told me what an architect is, I enjoyed drawing in particular. So I would like to design different houses and stuff like that.
Okay. Well, now we are certainly going to need more architects. As you know, Anna is her major is architect now. We're certainly going to need more. So that's definitely a great field. And I will say that you are an excellent artist. So I could certainly see that happening. Genesis, how do you see yourself 10 or 20 years from now? How would you paint yourself?
One, I would like to be a scientist, but people be telling me different, like I should be a lawyer or something. But I'm actually interested in science now, but I don't know if I'm interested in the future.
Okay. What about being a scientist intrigues you?
I just like how it incorporates different subjects all together. Even though I don't really like math, you're going to need math to do certain things.
Right.
And it just intrigues me how much discipline it actually takes to do what you need to learn.
Right.
And it takes a lot of hard work to complete your major and what you need to do.
Okay. And let me go to your brother, Israel. How do you paint yourself 10 to 20 years from now?
I paint myself as a lot of things. One, as a musician. Two, possibly a computer engineer.
Okay.
And maybe like an editor or like a director, because I want to like produce my own, maybe like a short film or something like that.
Okay, all right, that's great. Truth, how do you paint yourself?
Actually, don't know what I want to be when I get older. I'm still thinking about it, so I don't really
Okay,
know.
and in what areas are you thinking about?
Well, I only have like two in mind right now, and
Mhm.
that's a teacher and a linguist.
Okay, and so teacher, because you just what enjoy teaching students as a whole, or what about teaching is it that intrigues you?
I don't really know. I like teaching a lot. Like you need the patience for it, and I don't really have a lot of patience, but I will learn to get it. And I don't know. It's just like I just like teaching.
Okay, all right. That's fair. And Brahima, did I get you? It's so many of you. How do you paint yourself in the future?
I paint myself as an FBI agent.
Really? Now tell me, what about an FBI agent? What about that makes you want to pursue that in the future?
I mean, to help people and everything, like danger, to get danger away from people.
Ah, okay. So the idea of removing danger in the lives of people is what intrigues you. Okay, that's quite that's quite interesting. I would not expect you to have said that as a response. So let me all say this to you all. For those of you who are still thinking about what you want to do, is natural, is normal. Amir, did I get you? There's so many of you today. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any of you. So I hope, Amir, did I get you? Okay. So I want to encourage you all to know that you all can be whatever God has called you all to be. Whatever it is God has called you all to be, He's already put that gift within you. You may not know what it is right now, but trust me, it's there. Your gift is already there. And so don't get discouraged. The challenges are going to happen in life. That's a part of life. Challenges are there to teach you and to help discipline you and train you. So whatever it is God has called you all to do, you all are perfectly capable of doing it. Just stay on the track of whatever it is God has called you to do. Now, Glory, I didn't get a response from you, but do you already know how you would paint yourself in about 10 to 20 years from now?
Yes.
And what would it be?
It will be a linguist.
It would be a linguist?
Yes.
Okay, so like Truth, you enjoy languages, right? So that's interesting. That's two linguists. That's very interesting. All right, let me turn the corner in the time that we have left. The coronavirus is still here, as you all know. It has not gone anywhere. In fact, we are seeing increases of people who are reportedly being infected with the coronavirus in many of the southern states, and also in California and some of the Midwestern states. And so as we're talking about the coronavirus, right now New York is steady, as they stated. Our numbers are steady and it has declined in New York City. However, reports are saying that there's a second wave that's going to take place in the fall, right? And in the fall, we are supposed to resume school again. So let me ask you all this question as we're looking at all of this take place. What do you think about what is going on now and what we're dealing with as far as the coronavirus and what you are seeing? There are people dying every day from it. There are people getting infected. Now it's affecting younger people now as opposed to initially it was just affecting the older people. So again, they still don't know anything about this virus. They're still trying to find out more information about this virus as we go on. What do you all think about all of this as you are looking at all of this? David Solomon, what do you think?
I don't know what to say because like all the things that are happening, like you would have never expected to be present on what is happening today.
And with that being said, has it been difficult for you to watch all of this taking place, or how does that make you feel as you're watching all of this?
It makes me feel uncomfortable because like knowing if you go outside, there's a high possibility that you get the virus. So.
Okay, so it's made you feel uncomfortable. Truth, what about you? As we're talking about the coronavirus and it's still here and it's increasing and they're saying a second wave is going to happen in the fall, what have you been thinking about all of this?
Well, to me, it doesn't bother me as much. I don't know why. I think it's because, like, I'm here in the church and I know that I will be safe because I have Pastor Manning and everything. So it doesn't really bother me as much.
Okay, when you say it doesn't bother you, does that mean that you don't take the extra precautions and wear your mask and put your gloves on in that sense, or?
No, I do. I wear mask all the time. Because Pastor Manning tells us to wear it. I'm just saying that I don't think too deep about it. Okay,
all right. Amir, and what do you think about seeing all of this, especially the fact that a second wave could take place in the fall, because they really don't know?
I think that it's downhill from here. Will get worse.
Okay, so you think it's going to get worse. Shadrach, what do you think?
Well, as Chu said, it really doesn't bother me as much because I know I'm gonna be protected by God because I know I am a part of the elect. So if any new viruses come, I'm still gonna be protected.
Okay, and so like Truth, as you stating that it doesn't bother you as much, you still have to wear your mask and your gloves when you do go out, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Support and Glory, what about you? What do you all think about this as we are watching the coronavirus?
For me, it doesn't really bother me either. Not like I really don't care about it. I still care, but it just doesn't bother me as much.
Okay, and is it for the same reasons as Truth and Shadrach that it doesn't bother you?
Yes, but something that does bother me is that I actually have to be more careful outside because of what's happening. Like for people who's just going outside and saying that Black Lives Matter, and sometimes I'm scared that something might happen.
Okay, that's interesting. And Glory, what about you?
Yeah, it doesn't bother me either.
Okay. Anna, what about you?
The same as my cousins and my sister said, it doesn't really bother me. Because I know that as long as we have Jesus and I'm part of the elect, that we'll be saved from everything that's going to happen in tribulation.
Okay, Genesis.
It doesn't bother me as much. It just feels like this is not real almost because we were just in school, not knowing what was happening. Then we just jumped into quarantine, online schooling. It just happening all so fast. So sometimes I feel like it's just like a nightmare or something, but even though I know it's real.
Yeah, certainly. Leela.
The majority of the students has said that that they're not really bothered by it. I think for most of us who attend the church and who's under Pastor Mann's leadership, I think that we all have a mindset of, we're part of the elect and we're going to make into the 1,000-year reign of peace. Just as long as we keep, listening to the pastor and doing what we're supposed to do. Right. But also I feel like, we shouldn't test God and like go outside and start wearing masks and say we're going to be protected anyway. But it's the fact that, that we're still supposed to like take serious precaution because, I mean, anybody could get it, even us, like, God forbid, like, we can get it, even though we're part of the elect or anything. So I just stay cautious sometimes, it's very different. I think Amir has said somebody said it had made them feel uncomfortable. I also agree with that because, like, I feel like things is never going to go back to the way they were at all. We're just going to have to keep going through this, which is something that us as this generation never gone through, but we'll make it, I guess. We'll make it.
Well, I will certainly, everything you said is spot on, just because we are part of the elect, and I hear all of you, and unfortunately our time is gone, so we have to wrap up now. I hear all of you, those of you who said it doesn't really bother you, but Layla is absolutely right. Just because we're part of the elect doesn't mean that we don't still have to take the necessary precautions and wear our mask and wear our gloves and so forth, because we can get the coronavirus as well. But I do hear what you all are saying, in that your faith about living in a 1,000-year reign and being part of the elect, that God is going to take care of you. He's going to protect you, because you're absolutely right about that. But again, as Layla stated, we certainly don't want to, we don't want to test God. We want to make sure that we are wise in everything that we do and how we move. Brahima, I'll let you have the last word, and then we have to close out. A few seconds.
I follow what Amir said, because I think it's going to get worse. And I know nobody feels comfortable with this virus here.
Yeah, definitely no one feels comfortable. Well, I want to thank you all. Time has gone by so quickly, but I certainly enjoyed this moment having all of you on today, and thank you for taking the time to share with me today. Remember, again, keep your mask on. Don't take it off. Be careful, social distance, all of that. Thank you all for sharing with me today. Thank you all out there for sharing with us today for the Current Events edition this week. Be blessed and peace out. Welcome to today's Current Events class. I am Sabbath Rachel Lafleur. And to all of you out there, until next time, peace out.
God said, fire. 50,000 righteous men living for the Lord. All the land anointed holy. All the land anointed holy. All the land anointed holy.
ATLAH. That's what God said. That's what God said. That's what God said. That's what God said.